Hey everyone, it's Alison Heikkila. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to play with some Lindy's Magicals and a very cool stencil from A Colorful Life Designs. And the panel that we make with those products, we're going to turn into a full panel shaker card front. So it's been a little while since I've made a shaker. I'm in the mood for some Lindy's. I'm in the mood for some stenciling, so we're going to get started. So I have here Witch's Potion Purple and Freaky Frankenlime. These are from the Haunted Halloween collection. If you don't have this collection, that's okay. You can use two other colors from another collection. There are plenty of them out there. This just happens to be my favorite. And I also have the Mid-Century Atomic Teardrop stencil from A Colorful Life Designs. This is super cool. I love the intricacy of it. I love this type of style. Any of the mid-century stencils from A Colorful Life Designs, I'm crazy about. I think I might have them all. So what I did off camera is I sprayed the back of it. Can you see that kind of fuzzy looking situation that's going on? That is Pixie spray from Therm. This is really great for this technique, and for most stencils, I really don't recommend trying it without it because it's going to seal your stencil temporarily to your panel that you're working on. This is some Strathmore Smooth Bristol cardstock. This is actually cut to full A2 size, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. We're going to put this finished panel onto our card base, and there won't be a border. I know you're shocked, I always put a border, but this time I decided to go different. I also have, before I attach everything, this is just a clear piece of acrylic. It's like a skinny block. You can get these in a ton of sizes from Joggles. I'll have a link below. Use whatever size you want. If you have a large enough regular acrylic stamping block, you can use that too. The reason I'm using this, and it's not required, is because I like to let my panel dry after I'm done applying the Magicals, and I want to move it off to the side. I don't want to wait around for it. I want to keep working. And it's really not recommended to use a heat gun on your stencil if you're leaving it attached, because you'll melt the stencil and warp it and all of that. And that's not a good thing, because then you can't use it anymore. So I sprayed the back of this with Pixie spray. I've got my skinny acrylic stamp handle or stamp block. I'm going to put this right on top of my panel, and it's sticky, like I said, so it's going to adhere not only to the panel, but to this acrylic piece as well. And I'm just going to push this down. You can use a brayer if you want to. These are not super fiddly bits, so I don't feel like I need to use a brayer. Might not stick super well, but we can always use some tape. This is just mint tape from scrapbook.com. You can use washi tape, whatever your favorite low-tack tape is. This way it just sticks to the block a little bit better, because again, I want to be able to move this so that it dries. Some people leave it, you know, they only leave it for a minute or two and then they pull the stencil up, but I kind of prefer to just let it do its thing. I've got enough projects to work on, so. All right, so if you're not familiar with Magicals from Lindy's gang, these are a highly pigmented powder with shimmer. They have other powders, I think they're also called Magicals, that are not shimmery. I don't have any of those. I just haven't gotten to add them to my collection yet, but the ones that I use are all shimmery. And while you see it in the container, it doesn't look super interesting. That one looks pretty interesting. You can see the shimmer happening there. But there are many, many colors that make up each of these powders. I have a playlist here on YouTube where I've used the Lindy's Magicals, so you can certainly take a look and see how some colors break out into things that you might not expect, and you can see some different techniques, although I will say this is my favorite, I think. So you'll see what happens once we get going, but you're going to start off with this dry powder, and I like to use a fan brush. You can use a round or a filbert, whatever you prefer, but I really like using a fan brush because it kind of spreads the powder out a bit more. You just want to tap it into the powder. You don't need a lot. Now we're going to be adding a whole bunch to this, but you don't want to just dump it onto your card front here, because that's going to be way too much. And it's okay if it gets on the stencil. We'll work it out. But I'm going to just carefully tap this here and there. And it really doesn't look like a whole lot. I'm going to zoom in for you. How's that? That's better. Okay. We're going to just add this here and there. And again, this brush is dry, and we're going to keep it from getting wet. So this way, if we need to dip back into our powder, we're not going to wet the entire thing. Okay, I'm going to leave that over here for a minute. And now I'm going to dip into the Witch's Potion Purple. Look at how cool that is already. I mean, I would wear that as eyeshadow. Don't do that, but it's definitely my kind of color. Okay, so now I'm going to dip this in and sprinkle this one. You can see this one a little bit better just because it's darker. I'm just going to put it all around like so. This is a very relaxing process for me. It's not quite a meditative state, but I just kind of fall into this rhythm of putting the powder on, and then once we start adding water, it's just crazy. It's crazy fun. Okay, I am going to cover these up because we're going to spray a little bit of water. Again, keep this fan brush dry. So I've got a spray bottle of water here. I've got a little bottle of a jar of water, and then I've got a round brush. Again, you can use what you're comfortable with. I just happen to like using this size 6 round. This is Princeton Snap collection. I love these brushes. Anyway, got my spray bottle, and I'm going to spray this up really high because I don't want the water to move the powder off of my surface. I want to just kind of get things wet. So I'm spraying way up here. See where my bottle is? Way up high. This is about 1.5 feet up. And look at what starts to happen. This is going to start to activate those powders, and you can see, this is another reason that I have this on a block. Look at those colors that are coming out. You see that pink, there's turquoise, there's a little yellow. Super, super cool. I'm going to try not to oversaturate this because I do have my glass of water here. And now I'm going to just dip in my brush in the water just so that it's wet already. And just start moving this color a little bit so that I get into the areas that don't have any powder. So there's a lot of color. I'm going to zoom in a little further. There's a lot of color on top of the stencil, okay? So I'm going to pull that up and just kind of move it into these like half circles that are here. And it doesn't matter if it's next to a purple or next to a green. It doesn't make a difference. We're just playing with this color. And if you don't want that whole row to be green, you don't have to. We can just move it down over here and just kind of push this color around a bit. I don't want to mix it completely because we're going to get kind of a mud thing happening, but I want it to mix a bit, and I want to bring out some of those colors, and I don't want any of these kind of, let me see, hold on. Can you see how it's a little chunky right here? I want to kind of break that up because that's a lot of pigment there. So I'm going to move that around. And if you see any areas that you're not happy with, like, oh, it's starting to get a little muddy in one area, you can just pick it up with a paper towel and move, you know, your color in a different way. So see, that's a lot of green right there. So I'm going to just push that around like so. And having the water here is helpful so that you can switch between colors, especially if they're not colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel. Green and purple are not next to each other. So again, you can get the mud. You see that mud that's happening right here? It's fine. When it dries down, it's going to be fab. But we just want to kind of move this color and just play with it. You see how this can be like super relaxing? Maybe it's just me, but I really enjoy this process. And the Pixie spray is keeping the stencil adhered to the cardstock, the Strathmore Smooth Bristol cardstock, so that it doesn't seep underneath. There might be a little bit, and that's okay. But for the most part, it's going to keep it from really getting underneath. You can see how it's building up right along the edge. That means it's not seeping underneath, so that's good. So it's just a matter of of playing and moving this color. I'm going to keep working at this, and then I'm going to move it off to the side and let it dry, and we will do our reveal when it's all done. I finished filling in all of the areas, and I wanted to show you, like, look at how beautiful this is. I didn't add any additional colors. It is only the green and the purple. But you can see this spectrum that's come out of here in this one area, and it's just gorgeous. Even over here, that red that pops out is just so unexpected and pretty. I love the yellow that's coming through over here. It's going to look fab. So right now it looks pretty messy, but that's because the stencil is still on top. But I'm going to let this dry, and it's going to be amazing. And I didn't need to add any additional powder. What you saw me add in the beginning is all I did. Now you could go in and make this more solid. You can see how it's kind of splotchy. But I really like that. I don't need it all to be as solid as this. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting. The panel is almost completely dry, and I can't wait anymore. So we're going to just take a look and see how it looks. There's a little bit of seepage, not the end of the world. Oh, look at that. A little bit more than I expected, but that's okay. This, what's left on here, we could spray and add to another panel, and even if it doesn't look like the stencil, we'll have added shimmer to a new panel that we can then build layers onto later. But we're not going to do that today. We are going to take a closer look at this. So I've got a couple of ideas for how we can resolve some of the mess that we have. Again, I don't mind it, but if you do, you can use something like a white gel pen. Let me grab it. This is my Signo white gel pen. You can also use a white Posca pen or Posca marker. Let me see if I can find mine. This is the one that I like to use the most. It's a bullet shape, 0.9 to 1.3 millimeter. And I like to use this one. The size is good. The brush is, I should say the bullet tip is good. Again, I don't really mind this, but we're going to clean some of it up and see if we want to continue with it, just so that I can show you that it's pretty easy to kind of fix this issue. I do have a couple of damp areas, so I am going to use my heat tool on it really quick, and then we will do some fixing. So you might be wondering, well, why did this happen? You used that Pixie spray, and you were super careful and all of that. Well, sometimes it happens. Maybe I didn't apply the Pixie spray as good as I thought I did. Maybe I didn't push it down as good as I thought I did. But I will say that because I moved the piece around quite a bit when I was bringing it up to the camera and whatnot, I think that could have been part of the problem. So you need to shake your Posca pen, which I did off camera, before you start applying it. But you can see that this is going to hide it really well. This is a paint marker. It's like acrylic. There are some other brands on the market. Altenew just came out with their own version of something like this. I haven't used them yet, but I'm very happy with the Posca. You could see that, you can sort of see that color underneath, but it's way less obvious now that we've applied the paint marker. You can use the gel pen as well. I find that these are very finicky. They don't necessarily cover as well. You might have to apply a couple of coats, but that works out pretty well. So we can just clean up that overflow a bit. Now, these areas here, where it's not a whole lot the way it is here, I think that that looks really nice. And again, I don't really mind this kind of overflow that's happening. I really don't. But if you do, I just want to show you that you can fix it as much or as little as you want. See? And if you need to apply a second coat, you can easily do that. You just want to let it dry first. If you keep going over the same area while it's wet, you're going to start lifting up those layers and just creating kind of a globby mess that didn't really hide anything, and it kind of made things worse. So be sure to like let this dry in between your layers. And don't go over the same area too much, especially depending on your paper. You might wind up making it pill. This paper really doesn't pill, so I don't have to worry about that, but if you're using something else, it could happen. So I'm going to work on this a little bit further just to get some more consistency, and then we'll start making our shaker. Okay, so I cleaned up quite a bit, and some of the color tends to show through a little bit. You can see that there's a little bit of purple showing, but it's not as glaring as it was before. But I did leave a lot of the spill over. You can see that these pieces are still connected. I left this here because I do think it looks cool. I keep saying it, but it's true. But I wanted to show you that you can kind of clean this up and make it better. I only applied one coat to these areas, and I really only used the Posca pen. I just used this in that brief moment to show you what it can do. But I don't want to go crazy cleaning this up. I like this effect because the colors are kind of messy in and of themselves. So, okay, I'm getting all art teacher on you. I know, I'm sorry. But now we need to figure out what we're going to do with our sentiment, and we need to figure out what colors we're going to use for our shaker bits. I pulled a few colors from A Color for Life Designs. We have Luminous White here, which I think will be really pretty. We have Opaque Iridescent Dark Purple, Crystal Iris Purple Potion, and Metallic Lime. I think either one of these would work. I don't really want to use both of them because they're super similar. I mean, you can see that there is a difference, but the base color of them are similar, and I don't really think that we need to use both of them. There is no wrong answer here, folks. I think we're going to go with the Crystal Iris Purple Potion, though. Okay, so now that we've got that, I want to work on the sentiment situation. I went back and forth about what kind of sentiments I wanted to use and what style I wanted to use, but ultimately I went with this Thinlet set from Sizzix and Tim Holtz. This is the Bold Text #1. I think it'll be cool. I like that the words are blocky because I think it's going to work really well with this. There are a bunch of ways that you can use this die set, but what we're going to do today is I'm going to just place this over here, kind of line it up so that it's pretty straight. That looks all right. I'm going to grab some low-tack tape again. Really make sure that this is straight. That should be fine. And then I'm going to run this through my die cut machine. All right, ran that through. I'm going to carefully peel this off. I've got these letters, but we're going to remove those. But what I do is, because I don't want to waste them, they're perfectly good letters. They might not have a lot of color on them, but you can easily add more color with a spray or just inking them or just leave them as they are for a later date. I keep an envelope inside my envelope. What? I totally lost my train of thought. I keep an envelope inside this envelope so that I can keep all of my letters with the die set itself. See? So those are going to go in there, and I can use them at a later date. But I do want to try to get the center of the A out and see if that will work. But what we're going to do, you could make this a shaker in and of itself, but we're not going to do that today. We were going to make a full panel shaker. So I've got a piece of purple paper. This is just not cardstock, it's just paper. And I am going to put this behind it so that we have a backing. I'm just going to cut this down just roughly. It doesn't need to be perfect. I'm going to trim off this little bit of excess here, and then I'm going to adhere it to the back of this here, and I cut it too small. All right, let's try that again. Okay, now I have the right size, and we're going to just adhere that back here. So you don't want to apply the adhesive to the purple paper or whatever color you decide to use. You want to apply it to this piece so that you don't have glue where you don't want it. And we don't really need a lot because, again, it's just paper and not cardstock. And also this is going to get layers put on top of it because we're going to be making it that shaker. So I'm going to just do this. like so. And now that's there, and then we can take our A's, try to put a dot of glue right where that, I made it too high. We'll do this. I'm going to put it just on that center piece, hopefully. Put this in place. And then I'm going to grab my pokey tool and hold it down while I lift that letter back up. And now it's in place. And it doesn't look like much, but it does add that centerpiece. And I'm missing, there it is, there's the other A. A little dot of glue. And you'll see that I put the A's back where they go, because if I would have put this center here, it would have been green, and that wouldn't have made sense with the pattern. Is it a big deal? No. Would it have made me crazy? Yeah, probably. Okay, there we go. There's a little glue oozage, but it should be fine. We should be able to kind of get rid of it. There we go. So that, you can stop here. You can just slap this on a card base and call it a day, but I'm gonna go to the next step and we're gonna turn it into a shaker. Here I have some plastic. This is from an embossing folder, so it's just recycled packaging, and we are gonna use this to go around and cover our panel. You wanna be careful when you're using packaging. This in particular, there's a hole here. So you don't want to use that piece because your shaker bits, depending on the size, can fall out. So we're going to avoid that. And I'm going to just cut this off right here. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. You just want to make sure that it is bigger than your panel. And it doesn't matter what size your panel is, as long as the acetate that you're using is bigger. And if you have actual acetate sheets or shaker sheets, whatever, you can use that too. So now we have a double piece. I'm going to cut this down so we can use that other part for another shaker another day. Sometimes when it's on the seam, you can kind of just separate it. That makes it nice and easy. Okay. So now we have this. We want to make sure that there's no fuzzies in there. Okay. I'm going to take some Terra tape. This is from Imagine. I love this tape. You can emboss this tape. So you can, oh, we got a little extra purple showing here. You can put this tape down in a pattern or a stripe or whatever, and when you add embossing powder to it, you can heat set it and it's going to stay, which is really cool. It's a great way to get really simple stripes on a card. Okay, we're going to just go around the perimeter like so. And then we are going to remove the backing from the bottom like that. And now I'm going to take my acrylic, acetate, excuse me, and I'm going to lift this up like so. Make sure that you don't go past the top because you need this to wrap around all four sides well. And push this down like that. Just burnish with your finger. You also don't want to do it super tight because then you can have your panel warp. Now I'm going to take this and fold this over. And now we've got this little flap sticking up here. We don't want that, so we're going to just trim that off. Just like that. And then we're going to do the other side. Whoops, pulling up the adhesive with it. And we're going to, again, pull this over just like we're wrapping a present. Just don't make it too tight. And then we're going to trim this piece off again. just like that. Now we have this open pocket for our shaker bits. So we've got our metallic lime. Pour some of that in. Try not to spill it everywhere. Luminous white. I'm not going to overfill this because I really do want the background to be part of the focus, not just the shaker bits. I think that looks good. We've got a good amount in there. Yeah, that's like a party right there. Okay, so now we're going to remove the top layer of the tape, or the top piece, I should say. And then again, fold this over really well. Just try not to pull it so tight that it puckers the rest of the panel. And then we're going to trim off these pieces. And we have a very fun birthday shaker. How cool is that? Now we just have to add it to our card base, which is super easy. So I'm going to just apply some more tape around the perimeter here, and we'll move on. I've got tape all around the edges again. That helps seal everything off even more. And then I've got a few pieces diagonal. I use the same tear tape that I used before. And now we're going to just ever so carefully apply this to our card base. And this is tricky. This is why I like to use panels that are a little smaller than my card, because I don't have to worry quite as much if something's overhanging. But if you're careful, it should be fine. Ta-da! We have a super fun birthday card. Obviously, you can make this any theme that you want, but it makes a fabulous sound. You don't have to worry about anything spilling out. It's super duper flat. You can mail this with just a regular postage stamp. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a couple of things. And I hope that you give at least one of these techniques a try. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will be back very soon with another video. Be well, stay safe. Peace out.